Hello and welcome. You're with Zero MT, and we are, I think, on step 3 of our low-tech, low-cost digital music production. We've been using Pedalboard, a really cool piece of now open-sourced software from Neil Moody, and we're going to do more of that. A recap, in no particular order. We figured out what VSTs are. We created a place, a reliable, easy to find place to store them ourselves. We're using VST2s, not VST3s yet, and we're using 32-bit, not 64-bit VSTs yet. There are limitations, but already we're doing some cool things with them. We've got quick keys, which is the keyboard we've been using, and we saw its output using MIDI monitor, which just shows us what MIDI signals look like. We have Jazz Baby that produces a nice piano sound. So this is a VST-I, which is to say a VST instrument. There are lots of those, but we only have the one so far. And then we have Chordator. Chordator takes a single input MIDI instruction, for instance, turn on C3, and it changes it into up to 6 instructions. And then last time, toward the end, we threw in a randarp, which is a really powerful arpeggiator. An arpeggio is walking up and down a chord. A chord is, we are using currently Tritian chords. I think I'm saying that right. Apologies if I'm not. And those are the classic Greek chords, the kind that we almost all learn in piano class if we ever take one of those, or to strum on a guitar or anything else. Tertian chords. Anyway, that's a nice way to sound a bunch of notes at once and have them actually still sound good together. And then if you walk those same notes individually, you get an arpeggiation. The randarp is a way of walking them individually, but somewhat randomly. You can introduce some random aspects to it. And at the end of last time, we were at our Demo 1 project, and we had our randarp going, and I could hit a key, any one key, and the randarp was set to latch to it, and music would just start pouring out. I mean, I suppose you could argue it's not music, but I would say it's quite musical and somewhat euphonic and really hard to predict, maybe even unpredictable, unless you had intimate knowledge of all the random number generation happening on my computer. So let's hear that again briefly. Play with it a little bit. Okay, lots of fun. That is, so much can be done with that, and there's some gotchas, etc. But maybe you realize that there are enough tools here to actually create at least a simple composition already. That composition would almost certainly have lots of unknowns built into it, but if it's not obvious, one thing that might make it obvious is that we can have more than one randarp. So I could have 2 randarps. This one, the first one, I could transpose up by 7 semitones. That just means everything that comes into this gets a fifth higher, which is to say, instead of playing it with your thumb on the keyboard, you'd be playing it with your pinky, your fifth finger. And then we could, as an example, here's a C. That would be our first finger. We would skip this. Second finger, skip. Third finger, fourth finger, skip. Fifth finger. So if we count the skips, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 transpositions. The musical jargon confuses the heck out of me, and I'm constantly forgetting it and misstating it as I did earlier. So don't feel bad if you don't understand it, and please forgive me if you do understand it, but I'm going to try to be as correct as I can within the limitations of my means. So this randarp is churning away at 16, at lots of 16th notes. What if we were to change? No, let's leave that. Let's look at this randarp. So what's happened here? We have 2 instances of a randarp. I'm going to minimize this so it's maybe a little clearer. Here's the one, tried and true, that we worked on last time, although I changed its transposition. And here's another. Let's do a few things with this one. This note order was down and up 2, so we'll restore that. I'm going to reduce the probability. This one, I am going to play quarter notes. Okay, 4 times, the notes are 4 times as long as these. I am going to do fewer octaves with it, but still at least some random octaves. I'm going to have less variability in the velocity. And I'm not going to have any shifts. And, you know, I'm going to have no swing in this one. And the probability I'm going to leave kind of high. Now, this note order goes down and up. So how about we make this one go up and down? This octave order is random. Let's make this one random also. All right, so now I am going to remove, well, actually, I'm going to play, all right, I'm going to turn off latching on these for now. And I'm going to play, I'm going to hold down a key and quick keys. That's going to go through chordator, where it's going to become 3 notes. And then it's going to hit the first randarp, the one that we've been working with, where it does very similar to what it did before. So I'm just going to hold down this key and we'll hear some arpeggiation with significant random trimmings. Pretty nice. I liked that. Now I am going to remove the outputs of that randarp. So that randarp can no longer influence us, and I'll hold down a key. We see nothing happens. And instead I'm going to take this new randarp that I built, and I'm going to wire it up to Jazz Baby and also to MIDI monitor. We don't need this wire to MIDI monitor, but it helps us see this as it happens. I won't be doing that forever, but for these first few videos, maybe it helps. So now we're going to hold down the same key and see what sounds different. So the notes are slower. They are 4 times as long. I am going to, if I turn the gate down, that makes them less long. So these would be not quarter notes, but 98% of quarter notes. I'm going to turn this down to maybe 94% of quarter notes, but then I'm going to add a significant amount of randomness. So normally they're a little longer than quarter notes. Let's hear that. These areas where they're missing, they seem to be missing, it's because, remember, 83% probability that that note sounds. So it's not always sounding. That is nice, but I notice even the lowest notes are still pretty high. So I'm going to transpose this down an octave. Every octave has 12 semitones in it in Western music. So we go down an octave. So when I hit C3, instead of C3 or something related to it coming out, it'll instead be C2 or something related to that. So a lower C, even though I'm hitting the same key. Let's see what that sounds like. Okay, I'm liking that, but what if we go 2 octaves down, minus 24 semitones? What does that sound like? Okay, I'm liking that better. And I'll add another random octave, so occasionally we get up there into the highs again. Okay, now, what if I do this? What if I wire up both randarps? This one and this one. Sorry. This randarp and this randarp are both wired to Jazz Baby, and they're both wired to MIDI monitor. The wiring to MIDI monitor is optional, but again, might be nice to see. Let's hold down a key and see what happens. Oh, I'm kind of liking that. And what if I instead connect one randarp to another? So this one that plays the shorter notes is actually forming off of this one that plays the longer notes. How does that change things? That's nice, but the up and down, I can really hear it. The nice slow up and down. So what if we just walked this one randomly around? So we are starting to hear something that's musically significant. Yes, it's all machines, except for one guy holding down one key with his mouse. But hopefully it's musically significant. Hopefully you can see how daisy chaining these things together, building more and more sophisticated structures out of this, we can have interesting music. What if we latched? So that wasn't just because of latching, but I latched onto that key, which means I freed up my mouse, and I started turning some knobs here. I decided it sounds better with these on the half notes rather than quarter notes. I removed some of the swing, made a lot of changes that seemed to improve it. Didn't have to do a lot of cuts and takes and repeats, and then maybe this whole thing would sound better at a slower tempo. What about that? And maybe, instead of C, let's do like D sharp. Okay, enjoying that. So I'm going to save this. There is a ton of gold to be mined here, and we don't just need one chordator. We probably need 3 or 4. We could use some other VSTs that help us with our chord construction. We need probably a half dozen rand arps at least. We don't need the MIDI monitor. We could take that away. But I'm already pretty happy with what we're getting here, even if I just hit one note. And then I could hit the C. Then decide to change to G. So that's all we're going to do with that right now. This is a very fertile field, and I hope to come back to it and do lots of other cool stuff. But I have been cheating a little bit. I've been cheating the listener. Jazz Baby, the one thing we've been using to make all our sounds, is a very, very plain piano synthesizer. In fact, it's awesome, and I love it, and I use it all the time. But that's the only sound we've been dealing with, up and down, it's virtual 88 keys. So let's take a sharp left turn and look at timbre. Look at instruments, different instruments, maybe even some effects. Let's see how far we can get without going too far afield here. Okay, I'm going to be sure that demo 1 is saved. Good old demo 1. And then click, it's gone. Now, pedal board, we'll open up another one. Let's save this one as demo 2 FX. Well, let's just say timbre, which I will misspell, I'm sure. Got to be sure to have the .pdl on the end so it's a recognizable pedal board. Okay. We're good. So what are we going to do here? We need to do the basics, which is we need a quick keys and we need something to make sound, and Jazz Baby's all we've got. So quick keys, wire it to Jazz Baby, wire it to output, open up the interface. Okay, we're in familiar territory. That's good. Now, one of the first things, actually the first thing that VSTs were even designed to do was to alter existing audio sounds, which are audio effects. You hear this most often in the electric guitar community, wahs and fuzz pedals and delays and reverbs and all this stuff. It's just amazing, all the stuff that's available. Lots of them are in physical pedal form that we looked at a little while ago. Let's go to plugins for free. I will also start using other sites soon, I guess, but honestly, this one is just so good. Let's search for reverb and let's look for best rated. Now, I've experimented with probably 600 VSTs, and I have downloaded probably 600 more that I haven't been able to experiment with yet. So a lot of these look familiar to me. There's a TAL Reverb 4 that says it's for Win32, but I didn't think it was available for Win32, so we're going to open that in a new tab and have a look. Of these on the first page here, I already see some really good ones. Easy Reverb, if I recall, is really good. So we're going to open that. We're going to look one more page in. Maybe you saw there are 10 pages of reverbs here. They're not all reverb. Some of them will be synths that use reverb, things like that. The search is not perfect on this, but still, huge resource, and you could easily just go down that rabbit hole and never come back up. So we're going to just try to get a toe into this and not dive in head first. This ambient reverb, pretty sure I have used that. Stone Voices, I think, great developer, if I recall. It's been a while since I used it. TAL Reverb 2, it's one of the plainer ones, but I use that all the time. So we'll go here to TAL Reverb 2, and we're going to download the 32-bit VST. Okay. Once again, awesome, tiny, well, not tiny, but it's still a manageable file size, 31 megabytes. Okay, thank you. TAL is Togo Audio Line. They've done a ton of really cool products, a huge number. I did not know their Reverb 4 was available in VST 32. I've used it in my 64-bit projects, but not in 32. So, well, cool. We'll try that. And Easy Reverb, Saschart, amazing developer, great stuff here. Some of their other plugins are even more incredible. This one is 3 megabytes, fantastic. I mean, 0.3 megabytes, 300 kilobytes, pretty much. That's incredible. So this is more than enough reverb for us. Let's also look for chorus. You hear this in guitar circles a lot, but it's, it applies to any instrument really. Your typical chorus effect takes the pitch of whatever's coming in and creates 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe even, 16 different voices. Usually it's just 1 or 2 additional voices that are the same sound, slightly pitched up or down, and then maybe slightly delayed. So it sounds like a number of people trying to hit the same note on instruments that are just slightly out of tune and with timing that is potentially just not quite perfect. And it gives a very rich sound. Those little imperfections add so much richness to the sound. So let's look at these by best rated. And let me see if I can find some that I recognize. G Chorus from GVST. These guys are incredible. I don't use their chorus very much, but we're going to try it. Acon Digital, they do some great stuff. A lot of their stuff is for pay, but their freebies are also really good. This chorus, okay, the TAL chorus, I've used this a lot, and it's very straightforward. Let's try this one. So we're going to download 32-bit VST for that. And going to download the G chorus. These guys, TAL, GVST, these guys are just awesome. Okay, so this is something that you might as well get used to. A lot of these things are, I've been spoiling you by going to plugins for free and clicking things and we just get them. I didn't notice that this says link, so we're not able to get that file directly from plugins, from plugins for free. But it did take us to the GVST download site. Now, are we going to have to give them our snail mail address and our email address and our mobile phone number? No, I don't think so. I think these guys are actually going to be nice about this and just give us what we need. It's very cool that they've got Linux versions, Mac OS X versions. Great. Everything I've used from them, great. Okay. So that's enough for now. Let's take a look at what we just got. Downloads, if I can find it. Here we go. So we've got these 5 VSTs. We're going to scan them. Okay. Find any. So they're probably all good. Let's go ahead and let's take, a very slight risk and grab them all. So just to keep from even further cluttering up my downloads folder, I'm going to cut these and I will paste them into my new VST folder, which is it's right next door to that one. Here we go, paste. And if you're lucky, sorting by date modified will let you know which ones you got more recently. Just depends on how the timestamping works. Okay. I want all of these. This is fine. Now this license is, I mean, if you want to read it, it tells you that you can't resell the product itself. But these guys, and if you're careful and you pay attention to where you get these, and you don't ever use cracked software. That stuff's full of malware, and also it is really totally stealing things. But these are given away for free. But it doesn't mean that you have rights to create your own plugin by just rebranding this one or using this one in your own software. But it does mean you can use it for all the music you want to make. Use it as intended. That's what these sort of licenses mean. And most of these you do not have to have the license with them, but if the name is not going to collide with any other name, I think it's fine to use. Okay, now this one gives us the AAX plugin is the Mac OS X thing, probably. I guess there's an AAX. So AAX is not, at the very least, it is not VST. It's a different format of plugin. So I'm going to ignore that. There's a VST installer here, and you'll see a lot of those. Usually what it does is it takes you through a lot of rigmarole to figure out where your VST folder is and how to get a DLL into it. If the DLL is just sitting there, maybe this isn't super cool, but what I try to do is just grab it and we'll see if it works. If there are other supporting folders in there, like samples or anything else, you're going to need those too, almost certainly. But the installers are often overkill. All that said, let's run it. You need to see it. All right, accept. Now, see, it wants to put this in the default or something close to the default Steinberg position. I never use this, especially because a lot of times, people assume it's just, there is no Steinberg in the path, it's just VST plugins. It's much better to tell this thing where to go, literally. And if we can get the paste to work, let's see, can I copy here and just paste there? Nope. All right, we'll paste it in here. Will that work? Okay. Next. Install. Yes. Finish. Okay, so that we went through all of that just to get the DLL from here to here. Lots of times that's all that these installers are, and a slap in the face and waste of time to do it. Just copy the DLL where it needs to go. Lots of times, though, they do make changes to the registry or other they add important information to your system. So can't always get away with that. What's next? Easy Reverb, great. Now I'm not going to copy the README because I've got tons of README files. I'm just going to copy this. The TAL Reverb 4, for a long time, I've not been able to find this. So hey, look at this. This is our first VST3. So this is a 32-bit. We know it's a 32-bit plugin, but they gave us two. They gave us another one of these installers. This one's just for the AAX. We can easily ignore that. The VST2 is this DLL. We're going to copy it over here. That's great. But remember when I told you you might want VST3 folders? And the rarest kind is a VST3 32-bit. Here we have one right here. See, it doesn't have a .dll extension. It has a .vst3 extension. Might as well copy it over here. Decent chance we are going to want to use it. But we're going to go back to our VST232 folder because that's where all the real magic is happening. Moving on, the TAL Reverb 2. So this one, I'm kind of glad that you're seeing this. We've got a bunch more installers, and frankly, I'm almost certain we don't need these, especially having done what we just did from the same developer. The TAL Reverb 2.dll, like everything else, these .dlls we've been working with, it goes to our VST2 32-bit folder. We copy it there. Okay, great, done. But look here. Here is it looks like the same file, but it's got a -64 in it. That's because we want this, it ends in DLL, so it needs to be in the VST2 folder, but it's 64-bit, so it needs to be in our VST2 64-bit folder. we don't have to have that, but why not? I mean, we've already downloaded it and everything. And as we graduate to using VST3s and 64 bits, we've already got these effects there. We don't ever have to worry about that again. I think we just plowed through all of them. That's great. Okay. So let's go back to the VST232 folder in case we need it. We'll get rid of this. Minimize that. Come back to pedal board. We left pedal board up the whole time. Now, I'm going to save, even though this is very little. And then I'm going to say options, plugins. Remember I told you to pay attention to these internal effects? Once we do this import, some of these are going to start scrolling off, and you will have trouble remembering them unless you use them a lot. Hopefully we will use them a lot and you'll be back in your comfort zone. But we're going to, I just, as a habit, I remove the ones that are missing. It almost never does anything because you're keeping these folders clean manually. But if you make a mistake, it's nice to just have it removed. Next we scan, and this may be less than instant. I don't know, it'll probably still be pretty quick, but let's see what we get when we scan. Aha, maybe you saw the progress bar flash by. And now look, we've got our cup runneth over. We've got tons of cool effects that we just added. VST effect. Pedalboard is pretty good about telling the difference between an effect and an instrument. Of course, something like quick keys is not really an instrument. It doesn't make a sound. So it's sort of gray area if it's an effect or an instrument. But it does produce output. So it's more, it produces output without necessarily any input. So that makes it more like an instrument than like an effect. Okay. Now let's go back to Jazz Baby. And let's add some reverb. The TAL Reverb 2 is the one I'm most familiar with, so I'm use that. Now I've removed the connection, so we get no sound. Now we're going to wire Jazz Baby out into the TAL Reverb. And we still get no sound. Why is that? Because we haven't wired the reverb to the audio out. Okay, now we should get some sound, and it should be a little different than what you just heard. Sounds a little bit like we're on a stage here. Let's take a look at the interface. One thing you'll see is that Pedalboard's not the best at this because the standards keep changing, and Pedalboard looks at the old standards, but it has some presets. This very top line here is generated by Pedalboard. Everything else, which is just a slightly different gray in this case, is from TAL. But these selections represent .fx something files that are presets. At least they can be stored in that format. So we're listening to the Gentle Drum Ambience preset. Let's listen to 80s Plate. The plate is the idea that there's just a sharp, flat surface, like the wall of a tunnel or a big bathroom, and the sound is reverberating off of it. Let's do Need Some Air. So a lot of people will tell you don't use presets. I am entirely in the other camp. I say use them when you've got them. These are like the buttons on the radio in your car that let you go directly to the station that you want, or at least one that you will probably like, without wrecking your car while paying attention to every little detent in the knob. But don't be tied to presets. So we're going to look around. We're going to find one that this airy monoplate sounds pretty good to me. But actually, I'm going to go for this Need Some Air. That's pretty good. Now, we have a dry signal, which is set at 0 dB, which means no amplification, no addition or reduction in the volume of the sound, and a wet slider, which is set way down at negative 22 decibels. So let's play with this a little bit. Then slide this wet slider way up. It should get louder. Slide the dry way down, slide the wet up a little bit more, and we should just start hearing the space. Okay, I like that. We could increase the room size. The pre-delay is how many milliseconds do we wait between the sound hitting and the reverb coming. I usually do these pretty low. And these are equalizer options. And you know, reverbs can start sounding pretty shrill over right around where this was set, so right around 2000 hertz. So I am going to say reduce the volume above that level. Now we have a very different sound. Cool. There's a lot more to be discovered in the timbre of the sounds, and we're still just using Jazz Baby. It doesn't sound like a plain piano anymore, though. There's a lot of fun to be had here. The video's gone a little longer than I had hoped because, boy, in the zone with this. So we'll cut it here, and then I will try to come back right here onto this project. We can explore more about the timbre of the sound. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.